Unaware his wife survived the push into the sea, he married his mistress and took her company. 3 years later, when she walked into his boardroom with their son, he started vomiting and his mistress fainted. Miranda Hayes pressed her hand against her stomach, feeling the flutter of the 6-week-old life growing inside her, completely unaware that in exactly 90 seconds, the man she'd loved for 5 years would wrap his fingers around her shoulders and push her into the Pacific Ocean. Her heart was so full it felt like it might burst. 5 years of marriage, a company worth $200 million, and now a baby. She turned to find her husband, her smile bright enough to light up the darkening sky, completely unaware that the man she'd loved since she was 22 years old was walking toward her with murder in his eyes and his mistress watching from the shadows. "Ethan," she called out, her voice full of joy that would die in exactly 47 seconds. "Baby, come here. I have something amazing to tell you." But when Ethan reached her, he didn't smile back. His eyes were cold, distant, like he was looking at a problem that needed to be solved, not the woman who'd given him everything. "Miranda," he said quietly, his voice empty of everything she'd spent 7 years putting into it. "I can't do this anymore." Her smile faltered. "Can't do what?" "Ethan, what are you? This, us, you." Each word was a bullet. "I'm done pretending I'm happy. I'm done living in your shadow. I'm done being Mr. Miranda Hayes." Miranda's hand instinctively moved to her stomach, protecting the secret that was supposed to fix everything. "Ethan, please just listen. I'm—" But she never got to finish. His hands connected with her shoulders, hard and final, and suddenly she was flying, falling, screaming his name like it was a prayer that could save her. "Ethan! Ethan! Please!" The last thing she saw before she hit the water was Jessica stepping out of the cabin, her arms crossed, watching with the satisfaction of someone who'd finally gotten what they wanted. The last thing Miranda thought before the ocean swallowed her whole was, "He planned this. He brought me here to kill me." The cold water shocked every nerve in her body as she plunged deeper, deeper, her lungs screaming for air, her wedding dress wrapping around her legs like chains pulling her to the bottom. She fought, God, how she fought, her arms reaching upward toward the surface that seemed miles away, her mind screaming, "The baby! Save the baby! Please, God, save my baby!" But the ocean didn't care about babies or prayers or women who'd loved the wrong man. Above the water, Ethan stood at the railing, counting. 1 minute, 2 minutes, 3. His phone was already in his hand, but he didn't dial yet. He needed to be sure. Needed to watch long enough to know she wasn't coming back up. Jessica stepped beside him, slipping her hand into his. "Is it done?" He nodded, his face expressionless. "It's done." "Good." She leaned her head on his shoulder, her other hand resting on her own stomach, where his second child grew. "Now we can finally be happy." At the 4-minute mark, when Ethan was certain Miranda was dead, he dialed 911, and the tears came instantly. Perfect, practiced politician's tears. "Please," he sobbed into the phone, his voice breaking in all the right places. "My wife, she fell. She had too much to drink and she fell overboard. Please, you have to help me. I can't lose her. She's everything to me." The Coast Guard operator's voice was calm, professional. "Sir, we're dispatching a team now. Can you see her in the water?" Ethan looked out at the dark ocean, knowing exactly where Miranda had gone under, and lied with the ease of someone who'd been practicing. "No, I can't see her. It's too dark. Please hurry." But he didn't want them to hurry. He wanted them to take their time. He wanted the ocean to do what he'd brought Miranda here to do, disappear her completely. Jessica squeezed his hand. "You're doing great," she whispered. "Just keep crying. They need to believe you're devastated." And Ethan was devastated, not because Miranda was drowning, but because even now, even after everything, a small part of him still remembered loving her. A small part of him still saw her face on their wedding day, her eyes full of trust and hope, and a love so pure it had terrified him. That part of him wanted to jump in after her, wanted to save her, wanted to undo everything. But that part was small, and his greed was so much bigger. 3 months later, Ethan Hayes stood in the same church where he'd married Miranda, wearing the same suit, speaking the same vows, but this time to Jessica Marlowe. The woman who'd helped him plan a murder, the woman who was now 4 months pregnant with his child, the woman who'd taken everything Miranda had built and claimed it as her own. The guests whispered, "Of course they did. It was too soon, too fast, too suspicious." But Ethan had an answer ready for every question, delivered with the perfect amount of grief and hope. "Miranda would have wanted me to be happy," he'd say, his voice catching just right. "She loved Jessica like a sister. She'd want us to find comfort in each other." And people believed him, because Ethan Hayes had always been charming, had always known exactly what to say to make people trust him. That's how he'd gotten Miranda to fall in love with him in the first place. That's how he'd convinced her to put his name on her company. That's how he'd stolen everything without her ever suspecting until it was too late. But what Ethan didn't know, what he couldn't possibly imagine as he kissed his new bride and smiled for the cameras, was that 40 miles offshore, on a fishing boat that smelled of salt and diesel, Miranda Hayes had just opened her eyes. She'd been unconscious for 6 days. The doctors said it was a miracle she was alive at all. The hypothermia alone should have killed her. The water in her lungs should have drowned her. The injuries from the fall should have broken her beyond repair. But Miranda hadn't died. And when she finally woke up, gasping and screaming, clutching her stomach in terror, the first words out of her mouth were, "My baby. Is my baby alive?" The nurse's face softened. "Yes, Mama. Your baby's heartbeat is strong. You both survived." Miranda collapsed back against the pillows, sobbing so hard her whole body shook. "He tried to kill us," she whispered. "My husband pushed me. He tried to kill his own baby." The nurse's expression changed from sympathy to horror. "Did you say your husband pushed you?" Miranda nodded, tears streaming down her face. "I need to call the police. I need to—" But then she stopped, because what proof did she have? It was her word against Ethan's. He'd already reported her death as an accident. The Coast Guard had called off the search. Everyone believed she'd fallen because she'd had too much to drink. If she went to the police now, with no evidence, no witnesses, nothing but her own trauma-soaked memories, would they even believe her? Or would Ethan convince them she was mentally unstable, that the near drowning had damaged her mind, that she was making up stories because she couldn't accept that it had been an accident? And even if they did believe her, even if they arrested him, how long would it take? Months? Years? And in that time, what would Ethan do to cover his tracks? What would he do to finish what he'd started? No, Miranda realized with sudden, devastating clarity. She couldn't go to the police. Not yet. Not until she had evidence so overwhelming that even Ethan's lawyers couldn't make it disappear. She needed time. She needed to heal. She needed to become someone Ethan wouldn't recognize. Someone who could walk into his world without him knowing she was there. Someone who could gather every piece of evidence, every transaction, every lie, every crime, and build a case so airtight that when she finally revealed herself, there would be no escape. Miranda pressed her hand to her stomach, feeling her baby move, and made a promise that would define the next 3 years of her life. "I'm going to destroy him," she whispered, "not for revenge, for justice, so he never does this to anyone else. So our baby grows up knowing that bad people don't get to win just because they're charming." The nurse looked at her with concern. "Senora, you should rest. You've been through—" "I need a lawyer," Miranda interrupted, her voice suddenly steel. "And I need you to do me a favor. I need you to tell everyone I died. I need my death to stay official until I'm ready to come back." The nurse stared at her. "I can't just— Please." Miranda's eyes burned with an intensity that made the nurse step back. "If he knows I'm alive, he'll try again. And next time, he might succeed. I need time to protect myself and my baby, please." The nurse was silent for a long moment. Then she nodded slowly. "I have a cousin, a lawyer. He helps women who need to disappear. I'll call him." Miranda closed her eyes, feeling the weight of what she was about to do. She was about to become a ghost, about to erase herself from the world, about to let everyone who'd ever loved her believe she was dead. But ghosts, she thought, have a way of coming back when you least expect them. 3 years felt like 3 lifetimes. Miranda gave birth alone in a clinic where no one asked her real name, holding her son Carter against her chest while tears streamed down her face. He had Ethan's cleft chin and her green eyes, and when he wrapped his tiny fingers around hers, she whispered the promise that would keep her alive through everything that came next. I will get back everything he stole from us, baby. Everything. She lived in a one-room apartment above a laundromat, the smell of detergent and fabric softener seeping through the floorboards while she nursed Carter with one hand and typed on a laptop with the other. Online law courses at midnight, forensic accounting tutorials at 3 a.m., corporate litigation strategy while Carter napped. She became a ghost with a mission, a dead woman building a resurrection so precise it would destroy the man who tried to erase her. David Park found her first. Miranda's former CFO, the only person at Hayes Digital who'd refused to sign off on Ethan's suspicious transfers. He'd been forced into early retirement, but he'd kept copies. Every suspicious transaction, every forged signature, every offshore account Ethan thought he'd hidden. I knew something was wrong, David said when he finally tracked her down through the lawyer who'd helped her disappear. His hands shook as he handed her a flash drive. I just didn't know how wrong until I started digging. Miranda, he didn't just steal from the company. He's been embezzling since before you. Before the boat. Miranda's fingers closed around the flash drive. How much? 12 million? Maybe more. And there's something else. David's face went pale. Jessica, she knew. There are emails between them from 2 weeks before your accident, talking about solving the Miranda problem. She knew he was planning something. The rage that filled Miranda in that moment was cold and surgical. Not the hot, messy anger of betrayal, but the icy calculation of someone who'd already died once and had nothing left to lose. Good, she said quietly. Then they both go down. She spent the next year building her case with the precision of someone assembling a bomb. Bank records, email threads, security footage she paid a hacker to retrieve from Hayes Digital servers. The boat captain's confession, obtained through a private investigator who knew exactly how much guilt could weigh on a man's conscience. Medical records from the night she'd almost died, showing injuries consistent with being pushed, not falling. And then, the final piece. She created a new identity. Natalie Cross, venture capitalist with money to burn and connections that made Ethan's board nervous. She bought 15% of Hayes Marlowe stock through shell companies and demanded a board seat. Ethan never saw her coming. The night before the emergency shareholders meeting, Miranda stood in front of her bathroom mirror, Carter asleep in the next room, and practiced removing her colored contacts, blue to green, stranger to ghost. The woman Ethan had tried to kill, staring back at him from the dead. She'd cut her hair shorter. The suffering had carved her face into something sharper, harder. But those eyes would haunt him. Tomorrow, she whispered to her reflection, tomorrow he learns that some women don't stay buried. Carter called out in his sleep, and she went to him, lying beside her son in the small bed, her hand on his chest feeling his heartbeat, strong, alive, everything Ethan had tried to destroy. Your daddy's going to meet you tomorrow, baby, she whispered, and it's going to break him in ways he can't imagine. But even as she said it, even as she felt the satisfaction of revenge so close she could taste it, a part of her still remembered loving Ethan, still remembered the man who'd made her laugh, who'd held her when she cried, who'd promised her forever. That part of her was about to die all over again, and this time, there would be no coming back. The boardroom doors opened at exactly 10:15, 15 minutes late, which was exactly what Miranda wanted. Let them wait. Let Ethan sit there feeling important, feeling safe, completely unaware that the next 5 minutes would destroy everything he'd built on her grave. She wore a navy suit that cost more than her monthly rent, her hair pulled back in a style Ethan wouldn't recognize, blue contacts hiding the green eyes that used to look at him with love. Carter's small hand gripped hers tightly as they walked in, his shoes clicking against the marble floor like a countdown. 12 board members turned to look. Ethan sat at the head of the table, Jessica beside him glowing with her second pregnancy, their daughter Emma playing quietly in the corner. He looked happy, successful, like a man who'd never committed murder. Miranda watched his face as she approached, watched him catalog her features with casual interest, the way you look at a stranger who means nothing. He had no idea. Not yet. She sat down at the opposite end of the table, lifting Carter into her lap, and spoke in the slightly British accent she'd been practicing for months. Gentlemen, ladies, thank you for accommodating this emergency meeting. I'm Natalie Cross, and I represent a 15% stake in this company. Ethan smiled, the same charming smile that had made her fall in love 7 years ago. Ms. Cross, we're always happy to hear from major investors. What concerns can we address? Miranda smiled back, cold, sharp as broken glass. Just one concern, actually. She stood slowly, and something in the movement made Ethan's smile falter. Something familiar he couldn't quite place. She removed her blue contacts with deliberate care, revealing the green eyes that had haunted his nightmares for 3 years. The eyes that were supposed to be closed forever at the bottom of the Pacific Ocean. My concern is that the CEO of this company is a murderer who pushed his pregnant wife into the ocean, stole her company, and has been embezzling millions while everyone believed his crocodile tears. The room went silent, deathly, suffocatingly silent. Ethan's face drained of all color. His coffee cup slipped from his hand and shattered. No, he whispered. No, you're dead. I watched you die? Miranda's voice cracked with 3 years of agony. You watched me fall, Ethan. You watched me scream your name. You watched for 7 minutes to make sure I didn't come back up. Then you married her, she pointed at Jessica. In the same church where you promised to love me forever. She stepped closer, Carter still in her arms, and the little boy looked at his father with innocent curiosity. This is Carter, Ethan, your son, the baby I was carrying when you tried to murder us both. The baby who survived because I wouldn't let go, even when the ocean was pulling me under, and my lungs were filling with water, and all I could think was, why? Why would he do this? Ethan's hands were shaking violently. His breathing came in short gasps. Miranda, I didn't know you were pregnant. I swear I didn't. Would it have mattered? Her voice rose to a scream. Would you have let me live? Or would you have pushed me anyway because my life meant less to you than your freedom? Jessica stared at Carter, her face white as death, her hand moving protectively to her own pregnant belly. Ethan, she whispered. She was pregnant. Oh God, you pushed a pregnant woman. What have I done? What have we done? But Ethan couldn't answer. His body was rejecting everything, the lies, the guilt, the impossible truth standing before him. He vomited violently across the conference table, his entire body convulsing as 3 years of carefully constructed denial came pouring out. Jessica's eyes rolled back. She collapsed so hard her skull cracked against the marble floor, the sound echoing through the frozen room like a gunshot. Miranda didn't flinch. She just placed a folder on the table. Evidence, bank statements, the boat captain's signed confession, security footage, medical records, DNA tests proving Carter is your son. Everything. 2 men in suits at the back of the room pulled out FBI badges. Ethan Hayes, you're under arrest for attempted murder, fraud, and embezzlement. As they handcuffed him, Ethan looked up at Miranda one last time, his eyes desperate. I loved you. I swear I loved you. Miranda's tears fell freely now. I know. That's what makes this unforgivable. You loved me and you still tried to kill me. But I forgave you while I was drowning, Ethan. I forgave you every day for 3 years. Forgiveness doesn't mean you don't face consequences. It just means I'm not carrying your sin anymore. You are. She turned to leave, Carter's hand in hers. Mama? Carter's small voice echoed. Is that man my daddy? Yes, baby. Why is he sad? Because he made very bad choices, sweetheart, and now he has to live with them. As they walked out, the news cameras already gathering outside, Miranda squeezed her son's hand and whispered, We won, baby, not because we destroyed him, but because we survived. Ethan Hayes was sentenced to 25 years. Jessica took a plea deal for 3 years probation. Miranda rebuilt Hayes Digital into something ethical, something her son could be proud of. And every night she told Carter the truth, that love without respect is poison, that survival is the best revenge, and that some women don't just rise from the ashes, they become the fire. If this story moved you, hit that subscribe button right now and turn on the notification bell so you never miss stories like this. Drop a comment below and tell us where you're watching from and what lesson this story taught you about betrayal, survival, and justice. Thank you for watching.